While still painting single trees with no backgrounds, we will look at coloured foliage and flowering trees. A Crepe Myrtle with dark pink flowers from my own backyard, and a maple tree that is backlit. So this is an opportunity to learn about shadows and colour relationships. Last up is a quick mini demo of a Jacaranda in all its violet glory. A diverse range of colours will be addressed in this lesson. Where do we start? I think I might not end up doing flame tree, but I do like this one, and the other thing I wanted to do with this one is the shadow as well. So again, we're not going to worry about the backgrounds, we're not doing any of that. I'm going to work with this one first, I think, because yellow can be sometimes a little bit interesting. So I am going to give myself a bit of shape this time, mostly. So I do sometimes sketch, just in case you didn't realise that. And just on that, we could have sketched all of those others as well, but sometimes that can be restricting. And so if you actually allow yourself to work with your brush, sometimes the sketching, that side of things actually happens a bit easier. So that will do that, and of course something there. So I'm going to give myself some form. Now this one here is coming across, and I'm not going to try and make it look, I'm not going to sketch like this. Okay, that is not on. So what I am doing instead is just giving myself a little bit of, can you see the difference? Okay, so try and make your shapes interesting, always, no matter what it is. And in general, I'm just going to give myself a bit of an outside shape. We're still not going to do too much that's too much drawing, because a lot of this is definitely only brushwork, and if I was to do that, it would, if I was to pencil that in, especially if I was too specific like before, it just wouldn't work. And so I'm just going to do my one down here, and then just realise that some of these are actually, some of the darks are in between. So I'm not doing anything else beside that, okay? Right, now again, this time whatever red you might have, your cool red is probably the way to go. If you wanted it to be something totally different, I don't have a problem with that. Blue might be a little bit strange, but yeah, what the heck. So I'm going to start with the flowers, and the reason for that is because if we start with the flowers, we've got more chance of having them not lost in between, because we get carried away with all the foliage. I don't know about you, but I can do that quite easily. Okay, so it's very similar in the way we're working to our pine tree. Surprisingly, so just working with that. I'll worry about the tree trunks later. Little bits of some coming over, and there's just little bits of it here. I mean, you can make more of them if you want to. All of mine are going to be all this lovely pinky colour. Just looking for shapes at the moment, and anything where there's pencil left over, you can always rub it out later on when it's all dry, if I find that's annoying. And they sort of have this bit of a sweepy sort of look on the end, so they're not too nobody finished my sentence. Terrible. Shame on you.
Not too rigid.
That'll do. So my paint is relatively thick. I don't want it to be too runny, like that, so that I have a nice body of colour coming in. And can you even see where, when I work with that, some of the colour is a little bit stronger than the other. And so that gives me that more variation. It's more reality, I suppose, than normal. And of course I'm coming off the page there, but that's fine. Oh, I'm liking this. I think I might actually have it right this time. We'll see.
That looks good.
Until I get the greenery in it. And the touch on my brush, again, I've got my hand over my brush, working with it very finely and barely touching the surface in many ways, just little bits in between, and yeah, so that way it fans out, does its thing. I'm going to have some of the tree trunks coming up through there a bit more yet, and so I don't mind actually not having too much paint in that area. I think I'll just leave it like that for the moment, and if I need to put in more later on, I can. I think this time I'm also just going to work with the dark green, or if you need to mix a dark green, ultramarine is the way to go, with a bit of probably your warm yellow, or even your raw. No, raw umber will go too grey. Don't do that. Okay, so remembering that I want to keep a couple of the suggestions, maybe that's a good idea. Let's do that now. Let me just put in some tree trunks straight away, because just enough to make sure, remind me that I can do so. And if I happen to go over them, I just wanted a couple coming up through here, and not too worried about anything else. That's more about reminding me that they're there, and so I actually have that little bit of lightness coming through, the light coming through from behind. Other than that, we're just going to go in with the green. Again, a very light touch. And coming in. Now, if you needed to go down to a smaller brush, if you were already using something not bigger, and you also don't want to fill this in, because it's a very it's a very light sort of open tree. I probably will put a bit of mid-tone in here, mid-green, because I think at the moment I'm getting a little bit too blue. But I'll just see how I go first. A little bit of feathering in there, but again I want to keep that fairly open, so that suggestion of that light comes through there. Probably you don't even need huge amounts of too dry. And put bits of it up here, and probably fill it in there. Just going to come in with a little bit of mid-tone there, because I think it's all a bit too heavy. There you go, that looks better. I actually ended up dipping into the lighter green as well, just for that bit of variation. And some of that can probably come out right on the edges as well, because the sunlight would be hitting it. Now we could have done the lighter green first. It wouldn't really make any difference. The main difference is, and like I've often said, it's the lighter colours going down first is sometimes easier. So rather than going straight in with your darks. It's just that seemed to be quite dark in the middle, and I wanted to get some of that down. But you could easily have gone the other way as well. Okay, I don't think I'm going to play. I could play more there, but I think I'll leave it. I'll just do a bit of dark, do the rest of the... See the difference here where I've got this quite runny and allowing it to always just flatten out some ground. A little bit anyway. Maybe there's a bit of greenery on that. It was a good move that I actually put some stalks in there before, some branches, because at the moment I think I've practically lost them all. I can go a bit darker and leave it at that. And I think I'm done. The other thing you could do is, if you've lost a little bit of this, you could always just come back in with your pink and put a few more flowers on the edges if you wanted to, wherever it might be that you're missing a little bit of that. And it just adds extra bits. So you can play with the edges a little bit more once you've actually gone through and finished all these other bits. So, okay, I'm going to do one more now. Are you okay with that? And then I'll give you plenty of time to work with your other one. Now this is yellow. Yellows are interesting as far as shadows go. So I'm just going to go here and show you what happens. Now often violet is used as a shadow colour. What I want you to realise, and I'm just going to use a violet that's on my palette. It wouldn't make any difference. So that's the violet that I'm about to use. And I'll show you what happens with yellow. It literally goes a brown colour because they're complementary colours. And so it's not a nice shadow colour. Surprisingly, the best shadow colours to work with on a yellow, I'm just going to, are a green, because the shadows on a yellow are not that long, dark. They're never going to be too dark, especially when it's that lemon, or and even if you're going into the warmer colour, they're not that dark. The other way to go is to go with a little bit of an orange. And so either one of those can give you a shadow colour on yellow. So try not to, or at least a variation on the theme.
Sorry, the shadow's not any colour at all.
No, oh, okay, sorry. I'm talking about actually the, you're right.
Okay.
Sorry, yes,
I thought you were talking about shadow.
Yeah, the other problem is trying to actually point out exactly what I'm talking about at the same time. So no, here is what I was talking about within the yellows. The shadow, on the other hand, is very much influenced by the surface it's on. So if it was grass, it would be a deeper green. If it's a road like this, it's going to be a darker colour of whatever surface the shadow is on. Okay, same thing here with the pencil marks. I'm going to give myself just a basic shape. Part of that is so that I make sure that it is quite a nice colour, shape. That one. It almost looks like an autumn leaf itself. I think the way this one is coming, and then of course you've got the tree trunk. And while we're at it, it's actually not a very. While we're at it, we're just doing a bit of shadow now. Just again a little bit. Now, one of the things to remember is that shadows are on a flat surface. So you do need to have them not be too far, not to be too deep. They need to sit this way so that when even the ones coming forward, they only come so far forward. So you really need to make sure that that is actually on a straight surface. So it's coming that way. Okay, so with the yellow, I'm going to use both yellows. I'm not going to just use one or the other. And again, that is about variation. So keeping that quite, it helps if I can see what I'm doing.
So a warm and a cold?
I will use a warm and a cool, yes. And because the lemon yellow, the greenish yellow is basically the lighter of the two, I'm using it first. And it can pretty much go everywhere because this is very much a filled-in tree, a yellow tree, very much so. Just watch your edges and just watch your shapes. Remember, the same thing is happening here where some of the foliage is actually coming towards you, but it isn't as noticeable here as what it is in the other ones that we've done.
Is that foliage or is that flowers? That's
No, it's actually foliage because
foliage is on the tree.
It's a maple bush tree. It's probably just out here, it's this lovely yellow colour. So almost going over where I've already got some lemon-ish colour. A bit darker there. Too much water on that one.
So what are you using for that on the top of that?
It's the warm yellow that I've got.
You're calling it a warm yellow?
I do.
Okay.
Yep.
I call it orange.
Yeah, no, it's definitely not orange. It's towards the orange. No, it is towards the orange though. That's why it's warmer than this one, which is towards. It's just got a little bit of green in it. Now I've already got a hint of. I'm going to go mostly with the green, being as a shadow colour within that foliage. Now all I'm looking for here is the areas here where there's shadow in amongst this. So because it's backlit, so these areas are going to be the shadow part of the tree because it's backlit, which we know because of the shadows in front. Still looking for that vagueness of mark and the way you're using your brushes. So try not to fill this in too much. It's quite an open tree. And just looking at the areas so that we look at that, so that there's a variety of shadows in there. This is orange, quite different, but I'm going to add just a little bit of that orange into this to again just make it that little bit more but again a bit more variation, I think, as much as anything, making a little bit into that darker area as well. I think I'm going to leave it there. If I try to muck with that too much more, it'll get overworked. Just looking at my edges, alright, I think I'm quite okay with that. Alright, now shadow, I'm going to again just use a umber or a burnt umber to give that. I'm going to leave the other branches in amongst this because it's too wet to do that. I wouldn't be able to have them. They would bleed. Is what that would be. So, as far as the shadow goes, what would you prefer? Would you prefer it on grass or would you prefer it on road? Anybody have a preference?
We've got the green in the tree.
We'll go to green. Sorry?
Green on.
Green on? Alright. Okay, so let's not complicate it. Let's just do it the way it is. And because it's a black, effectively, I don't like doing, I'm not going to use a black, I'm going to use burnt umber and French ultramarine or ultramarine. The reason for that is, and I'm not going to mix them entirely, I'll put them both on my brush at the same time and hopefully we'll get that suggestion. It's almost like the Payne's Grey that we've used last week anyway, come to think of it. So, and again, just trying to keep that very openness happening into the shadow.
So what are you using?
Burnt umber or the dark brown and your ultramarine. And ultramarine.
French.
Ultramarine.
Yep. The reason for that is it actually if you mix them properly, they will make a black. But when you make them, when you don't mix them, you just have them on your brush, you get a variation of colour. And so some parts of it would end up being more black, some parts will be black, some parts will be brown, and other parts will be blue. And so that way we have our shadow. So that's pretty much the demonstration, I think, on that. There we go. So we're going to do our violet jacaranda. Were you aware that it's a jacaranda? No. When the winter comes, they go quite a bright yellow before they lose their leaves. So we've got, jacarandas are very interesting. They go from bare through to having flowers before then they get foliage, which then turns to yellow before it drops off and starts again. So yes, this is a jacaranda. It's surprising. It probably never occurred to me, you know, a while back either, but I've been watching them, and considering the flowering season of a jacaranda is usually only about 2, maybe 3 weeks before they all disappear or they get full of the leaves over top of the foliage, the flowers. So yes, so what I'm going to do here, remember I did that very small one where we just used the brush. So I'm going to do that here, and I'm just going to use a couple of areas with that to just as much to give me the shape. Yes, we could do it yellow, yellow-green like it is, but I mean, come on, it's a jacaranda. So the difference this time is I'm going to pick up some pink and I'm going to go back into the cobalt, and I've got both of those colours on my brush at the same time. So again, using my hand pretty much horizontal to over my brush, and the brush is horizontal to the paper, I'm just going to give myself a little bit of colour, moving my brush around, rolling it just that little bit, dipping it back in, and there's more shadow over here, so I'll go
When you put the two colours on a brush, do you put some on one side and then the other on the other side?
I do actually, yes.
I thought I saw you do that.
Yep. Good question. Except now they're getting a bit muddy because I didn't wash my brush out in between. Muddy when I say they're mixing a little bit more than perhaps would be necessary, but that's okay. But see, look at that, we've got the pinks happening there. And all I did there was just pick up some violet, some blue, sorry, and it was already in the violet. So if I wanted to, I could just try that again and just pick up some pinkish and up the ante here a little bit, because it's not really a pink. It is actually that violet, pink violet or blue violet, and most of that is what you get on these jacarandas. I just find that's the easiest way to do it.
Sorry, are you doing a jacaranda in flower?
Yeah.
Oh, not.
No. Yeah.
Okay. I was wondering how you're going to get back to that one.
And the shape of the tree is going to be the same or very similar.
Okay.
So, I mean, this is called artistic license. Just because it's a winter tree doesn't mean to say
Just a point of clarity,
that's all good. Now, of course, I'm going over top of my previous painting, but that's irrelevant. And I'm just going to give myself now, even as I did the branches, you push your paintbrush a little bit further on and then lift it off so that you end up with these more finer marks. And that will probably do it. The only thing I don't particularly like, I've ended up with a bit of an oval shape here, so I probably could have just changed that up a little bit more. But that's a minor detail. It's a fairly oval tree anyway. So that's given you plenty of things to practice this week. And so what we have learned today is that there is more than one sequence in which to paint. Sometimes the flowers can be worked before the foliage or branches, or vice versa. And shadow colour reflects what it is on, whether a surface such as road or grass or on foliage, which was yellow. The challenges that painting can throw up are seemingly endless, and we are just getting started. So to expand on that, the challenge for Lesson 5 is backgrounds, foregrounds and greys. It is a full house of instruction coming up, so do your practice with this class and then rest up and come back refreshed for more.